Yes, sir. Browns win 18-13. This is the OBR streaming network. Welcome into the post-game show. My name is Brad Ward. The man next to me is Jacob Roach. We'll have other people popping in and out throughout tonight's post-game show as we break things down here for you. And appreciate you all showing up. The chat is full and excited, hopefully, as the Browns go to 1-1, get a hard-earned, road victory in Jacksonville, which I just learned earlier today was northern Florida. So, yeah, and, it was rainy and it was sloppy, and so was the Browns' play at times, a lot of times. Most of what they overcome today, Jacob, was their own stuff. It felt like a little bit, but they did. Let's start with real quickly before we dive into the game, injury stuff. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here. David Bell, he was carted off with the hip injury. Did he not come back?
I don't think he did.
I could have sworn he came back. I might be losing my mind a little bit. Okay. Garrett says his foot is not feeling great post game, but we'll play through it. And PFF has this cool thing now with the live grades or whatever. But Denzel Ward, I didn't realize it because he seemed that he played well and was kind of all over the place. He has a dislocated hip, so he definitely did not come back. Okay, my bad. I missed all that. Ward, only 11 snaps today. Did it feel to me? It felt like he was out there more than that. Am I crazy?
No, because I don't ever remember them even talking about it. Like you feel like a player like Denzel Ward is only playing 11 snaps that somebody would talk about it.
Yeah, not one time. Ward has a shoulder. They had him on a snap count. Although he was highly involved in a number of breakups, potential interceptions. He was in on that play where he got ran over, and no call. I mean, it was blatant offensive pass interference, and it was completed to their tight end. One of the worst calls of the day to go against the Browns. But, hey, they win. Let's start with the offense here, okay? I want to talk about, first of all, the first half and how Watson came out and looked. The Browns scored on 3 of their first 3 possessions, going up 13-3. They didn't punt until late in the first half. He was 7 of 8 for 83 yards with a 109.8 rating on that first drive. He finished the game 22 of 34. No touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, and 0 interceptions. What did you think you saw from him?
It was a step in the right direction, I think is what I would call it. You can't look at it and say, this is old Houston Deshaun or anything like that, but he had some of those moments. And I think what we talk about how he started the game. You don't get like 3 penalties on that final drive. Deshaun played really well on that final drive to try to set him up to win that game until it, became 3rd and 36 really quickly on him. But overall, I thought this is a step in the right direction. I thought he looked like he was trusting his eyes more than he was last week, because I thought at times he would just drop his eyes and just panic. And I didn't think you saw very much of that in this game. I think he took what the defense gave him a lot of the time, which is what we asked him to do. That's where we were like, man, if you just do these things, you'll be good enough. And I think he was that. I think he was good enough. I would even call it good. And I would say if he can take another stride like he did this week, they're in business moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, so he exceeded my expectations, certainly. I want to say welcome to Quincy Carrier. What's up, my guy? Popping in here on the postgame show. We appreciate you. I want to get your thoughts on this, too, on Deshaun's performance today. He exceeded my expectations today. He looked good early. He was done no favors by his wide receivers again today. We had 6 drops. Now some of those, can they be more accurate? Yeah, but then we're getting real nitpicky a little bit, I think, on some of them. Coop seems to be in a little bit of a funk right now. He let a number of catchable balls go through his hands, including one that it looked like he tried to catch with his elbows when he was wide open. I thought that for the most part, he managed the game the way that they needed him to win the game. And that's all I've really asked of him. At times he made a couple spectacular plays, and he didn't make the big mistake. So coming away from it, I feel much better. Quincy, what did you think from what you saw from 4 today?
Yeah, this was 2023 Deshaun Watson, the way we kind of talk about him, right? When we're talking about some of the better stuff that he did, the Tennessee game, the Arizona game, the second half of Baltimore. And this is kind of what you expected him to look like at a bare minimum week 1 last week, right? So it is a step in the right direction, like Jordan Jacobs said. And I think that's an important step to take. I have seen people like doing victory laps on this. Like, we got to wait, right? We need games upon games. And even if Watson had played decently against the Cowboys, we need games, right, from him. That's the big thing from him. Yeah. So right now, I was worried that I would leave this game convinced that he can't be out there, right? Like, because that's what that Dallas game was. This made me feel a lot better that, okay, you can be functional and do what you need to do, and he can handle some of the stuff that he needs to do. And again, you can get that baseline 2023 level play from him. Obviously, you want to see him have better games than this, right? We don't want to be talking about the first half of Jacksonville like we talked about the second half of Baltimore, right? This cannot be a high point for Deshaun Watson. This has to be kind of a game that falls into the background the more and more we talk about what he's done. But if you look at it in the context of where we are right now, yeah, this is what you wanted Deshaun Watson to do. Did not try to put the game in his own hands. Did a real good job just taking care of the football, putting it where it's supposed to. I pointed this out last week. Like, it felt like there were very few times where Deshaun Watson felt confident about a throw because he felt like he had a concept that was going to work versus the look the defense was giving him, right? Very few times he was striking a ball because of that. It was usually, I saw a DB slip. I'm gonna fold this right there to Jerry Jeudy, or he's trying to react to something. This was a little bit different, right? He made a couple throws where I was like, okay, he saw it. He saw what was coming. He threw right over it. Cool. It's what you want to see for him. So it's a nice baseline for Deshaun Watson. We got to keep in mind, and I think this is a tough thing for Browns fans to do because our expectations for where Deshaun Watson should be have just jumped all over the place, right? And we kind of forget we expect this guy to be top 5. And in a different world where we haven't been through these games with Deshaun, we would be not disappointed, but, a little let down by performance where he only gets 22 out of 34. I mean, it's not bad. It's actually quite fine, especially compared to what other teams are doing now. So yeah, with Deshaun, this is more along the lines of what you wanted to see from him. And this is the kind of game that you can have while the offense is still warming up. The line really got in his way, I think, in the second half of this game, even before all the penalties in that last drive. Like, the pressure that Jacksonville was able to get in the third quarter of this game specifically really derailed a lot of things I thought the Browns wanted to have open. There was that one play, I forget what they call that footwork, Jacob, you might know it, but they love going, it's like it's a play action out of shotgun where they do the shuffle slide and then the half step over to kind of flip his body position to have his eyes on the opposite side of where he hands off. And I was like, there was a shot there, right there. But guy right in his lap before he could even step up. So that affected him. And the Amari Cooper thing, I'm going to lean towards, because I know what Amari Cooper has done over the last couple of years. Maybe he's playing himself into shape. He did not have a healthy camp. He came late to camp because of he came on time to camp, but he was in and out of camp. Maybe he's playing himself into shape, and that's why he looks like he's a step slower out there, or a little bit behind when it comes to reacting to balls and getting underneath deep balls. That's the second time he hasn't tracked a deep ball properly, which is concerning because he missed that one in the middle of garbage time for the Browns. And then you get this opportunity here. I mean, that would have been a huge chunk play for this team at a moment where they absolutely needed it. And it was right there in the breadbasket. And I'll say this, I don't think a lot of Watson's misses were on him. I would say the ones to Elijah Moore and Amari Cooper, those balls were where they were supposed to be, right? Now, I don't know how much that changes his stat line. There were a couple balls that he threw out of bounds, or the one to Jerry Jeudy that Jerry dropped because he just couldn't finish through contact. But that's just kind of the Jerry Jeudy experience. If you watch this film in Dallas, he's just going to drop a couple of those through contact. So overall, offensively, you feel a little bit better about where they're at, especially Kevin having a much better game this week. Jerry Jeudy, I thought, was very encouraging in this one. I thought he played himself pretty well this game, and just I mean, hey, I don't know what it says about the rest of the wide receiver core, but it's like when Jerry Jeudy gets the ball, or like when you see him run, you're like, wow, he's fast. And like you don't really feel that way whenever you're watching any of the other Browns receivers touch the football. So I don't know if that's something I should be more concerned about when it comes to this receiving core, or maybe it's just I should be excited about where Jerry Jeudy's at, but we'll figure that out throughout the course of the season. But this is a right step in the right direction. And look, he can throw for 300 yards against New York Giants next week. It's not going to move the needle. Like, it's going to take a long time. If you're somebody who wants the needle to move on Watson, it's going to take a long time for that needle to move nationally, for that needle to move locally. It's going to take games, right? Games that matter. He's going to have to do this against teams that people think the Browns shouldn't beat, and probably in front of an audience larger than a 1:00 Sunday one, right? I think too much we try to like take a victory lap or like get the L and think that the victory lap can replace the L. It's going to take weeks for this Browns offense for you to feel confident in this Browns offense, the way that you were hoping to coming into it. But, you know, this is a good step in the right direction. Hope they build on it. Hope they add to it. The weirdness on the offensive lines with the penalties, like, I don't know how seriously to take it and if to be like furious about it, because it was a lot of holding. And I would be instantaneously furious if this was like a bunch of like false starts or like illegal procedures, even though this year illegal procedures weird. They're calling it so finicky this year, much more so than last year. Jacob?
The thing that's frustrating me is these they're calling illegal shifts on these orbit motions that everybody runs every year.
That's what I didn't understand. The one with more?
Yeah, when they did it to Jacksonville too, they both ran an orbit motion, and they were like, "Hey, let's throw a penalty on that." Like, I don't understand exactly how games are being officiated when it comes to these illegal formations and illegal shifts, because I think they're being really weird and inconsistent. But at the same time, you said it, Q, like 5 holding penalties, man. Like,
yeah.
And it wasn't the guy, like, if it were Jermaine Ifedi and Wayne Hudson getting 5 holding penalties, okay, they suck. Like, they got to hold. Like, it is what it is. Like, you know, but it's Wyatt Teller and, like, Joe Bitonio that got the bulk of these holding penalties, right? Huh? Who else was it?
Pocic.
Yeah, it's like the core of this offensive line, like the interior that's getting these penalties. And it's something that I've been worried about all offseason and progressively since 2020 is the natural decline of that interior 3 that kind of carries this offensive line together. Like, is that starting to happen? I know they replaced J.C. Treader with Ethan Pocic at some point here, but it's a bit concerning, right? Because like Wyatt Teller, you don't expect him to have to be in a position to hold just so you can get a positive run here. And the same should be true with Joe Bitonio, even though Joe had a couple, well, I forget what play it was, but Joe got put in the lap of Deshaun at one point here. And it was like Davion Hamilton, right? It wasn't even like it was Josh Hines Allen that did it to him. So I'm worried about the penalties from that perspective. Like, I don't think it's like a discipline thing and Kevin needs to like scream at these guys or something. I think it's more like this is like, oh, they lost the offensive line coach. It's more of a question of like, hey, is their age just starting to show here? Like, is it just the wear and tear of the tires that they're having to hold more? And this was just a game where they called it a little bit more strict than other games will. Like, is this what it's going to be with this offensive line? The other penalties, the illegal procedure stuff, I just have no idea what the NFL wants from these orbit motions anymore. Like, they called one, and I was like, okay, I got it. He moved while he was in motion. Cool. For every other one that they called, I'm like, well, what? He's allowed to move. He's always been allowed to move.
I just watched Kansas City do it like 3 times.
Yeah, like as long as you're off the line of scrimmage and it's one person, you can have that's a fundamental principle of offense. So I don't know. It feels like the NFL is just trying to discourage something without telling us they're trying to discourage something. Like that's what this feels like. And they just need to send a memo out and say, hey, quit with the cheat motions and the orbit screens. But these orbit screens have been existing for like 3 years. It's not like this came in the league with, was it McDaniel with the cheat motion last year? Yeah. So I don't know. It's mind-boggling how they're calling this and the strictness that the NFL does this every year too. I would like to remind people where they just choose a thing to be really like, yeah, we're going to call that this year, right? And then they don't call it for the rest of the year. Once you get out the first 4 weeks of the season, it's like they just want to get it to the point where they can say, hey, look, we called it. We were watching it this year. Look how many more penalties we called. And then like once they get the amount of calls they need, then they just call it quits. But yeah, it's other than the penalty stuff, I don't really know how far to take it. I'm worried about the holding because what that says about the confidence that these guys, some of the interior guys, have in themselves. I thought other with wide receiver issues moving forward on the motion, they don't explain it though, Zave. Like that's not what I'm saying. Yeah, it's like usually when you get a penalty, hey, unless it's like something obvious, right? Holding, they don't explain how you held. But if it's pass interference and it's dicey, they tell you where that pass interference happened and what to look for. But this stuff, they weren't even telling us, hey, he moved, or usually the pre-snap stuff they tell you, they didn't even tell us. So I don't know what's going on there. Would love to get the leak memo with that. But yeah. Offensively, you're straight up there. Defensively, I know people are going to be concerned about certain elements of it, but like, I keep in mind the Browns played 2 franchise quarterbacks to start the season, right? Which is a little bit different than how they had to start off the season last year, right? I think a lot of people expect the Browns' defense to look like they did against Arizona every week, like every time they go out there, and that's not going to be the case. Like Trevor Lawrence is going to get a drive off on you, right? He's going to make some throws if he's not like playing with a high ankle sprain and horribly inaccurate with football. Same thing's going to be true with Dak. And that happened. Dak got a drive off on you. You know, he got one with an amazing throw. He got the other one off of like a legitimate drive. Similar kind of situation happened here with Jacksonville, except for I believe they stopped Jacksonville on the one where they drove like 16 plays downfield, and then they forced the field goal, which ended up being huge in this game. I think the defense is fine there. I didn't notice Denzel wasn't on the field for I think the last couple of drives, but he had
talked about that. Yeah,
he had his helmet.
11 snaps.
At least the early PFF snap count was 11.
Yes,
for who?
For Denzel.
Which I thought was I thought it was a lot higher than that. It felt like he was out there for most of the game. It felt like
they never really tested Denzel outside that one play.
Yeah,
so we never really felt Denzel not being out there, right? I think that's the important thing there. Like where the Jacksonville Jaguars were able to get you was running the ball, and that's just the nature of Jim Schwartz's defense. You're gonna be able to run the ball against Jim Schwartz's defense. It's just the nature of the beast. The Browns kind of rely on getting like a TFL to just discourage people from running the football so they can rush. I did think that they needed to get a little bit more pressure more consistently. I thought that was something that could have ended up biting them in the butt, but in the fourth quarter, they got pressure there more consistently. So I'm not as concerned about that. And shout out to special teams. Shout out to the punter. Play the game. The craziest punt you'll ever see in your life. And then Alex Wright makes the best play of his Browns career, right? I feel like I could be confident saying that. Best play of his Browns career. He's had an underrated run here. I know you got the jersey in the background. The Andrew Berry 3rd round picks. I know he's never had a good 3rd round pick if you listen to the internet. But yeah, Alex Wright, I thought he did a tremendous job there on that play, cleaning. Well, I thought he cleaned up off Miles when I first saw it because, like, you usually assume that's the case. And Miles did get pressure. But, that was going to happen, whether that was Miles on the other side or not. So, shout out to Alex Wright, made the play of the game. Somebody had to make the play. And it looked like Deshaun was going to make the play because he had that great throw and catch to Jerry Jeudy. And unfortunately, we're going to forget about that because of what happened in the next set of downs, like a million holding calls. But that was an amazing catch and throw by him and Jerry Jeudy. And you notice Jerry Jeudy, I think he had 2 plays that he made off of Deshaun Watson scrambling. So he seems like the one wide receiver that understands where they need to be when Deshaun Watson wants to move outside the pocket. And it looked like Deshaun had a little bit more umph on those throws when he did break the pocket more so than last week. So, yeah, unfortunately for Jerry Jeudy, I think a lot of things he did well in this game be forgotten. But I think defensively, offensively, you look at it all together, it wasn't as clean as you wanted to. No, I wish they would have closed it out in the third quarter, at the end of the third quarter, where they obviously had that drive and they could have just closed this thing out, scored a touchdown, put Jameis Winston in and ran the ball with 14 more times with Dante Foreman and hopefully not get a holding call every time you do it. And I feel like he had like 70 rushing yards that just got wiped away.
He had at least 25. Like off the top of my head, there's at least 25 yards. The big one was his own fault, that face mask that he had. But there was a couple of 10-yard runs, I think, where he drugged people, and you were like, "This is what we wanted. This is what we wanted." And then he ends up with 47 rushing yards, and you're just like, "Whatever."
So we kind of have to talk about, I agree with much of what you said. As far as the pressures go, they had 7 pressures, 4 sacks, none bigger than a very well-timed sack from Garrett on the one that stopped the drive, right? And then obviously
that was a strip sack, right?
Yep. On a was that a third down, right?
Strip sacks. Ain't nothing gonna stop it. Foot hurt, everything. He's still gonna get strip sacks early.
And then Alex Wright, safety, as you mentioned. But so the JOK with 2 TFLs, Delpit 2 TFLs. They both led the way with tackles. JOK with 7, Delpit with 6. So those guys played well, coming up and playing the run. Made some big plays in the first half. There was some dumb stuff here. Okay. We talked about the 13 penalties for 100 yards, but there was some dumb stuff from the Browns, right? The penalty on the kickoff fumble, like, I don't know. That's inexcusable. You get a guy like Winston Reed. He runs down there. He pops, dude, knocks the ball out. That is such a huge play, and they call him for crossing the 50-yard. Like, that's just inexcusable.
I can't blame that one on Dustin Hopkins because his momentum naturally carried him across the 50. Like, that's a bad rule on the NFL's part. The rule should be you can't cross the 50.
You got to know it, though, Q. You got to know the rules.
You don't expect them to call that. Like, the rule should be you can't cross the 50 as a kicker and then touch him, right? Like, that should be the rule. The rule should be, he can't just cross the 50 when everybody else is on the 40. Like, that's...
I think it's it. He can't cross the 50 till the player touches the ball.
Yeah, and the tee was like way closer to the 50 than normal. And he just crosses it, and I don't know. It felt like one that you just called because the rules knew, but like you're not gonna call that like when the shit is normal to kick the ball off like that. You're definitely not calling that like in the division championship game. You're like, he crossed the 50-yard line. How did that affect the play at all? Like, tell me what was the purpose of calling that penalty? What unfair advantage did the Browns have because he crossed the 50? What's the point of the penalty? Like, the whole point of a penalty is, hey, that's an unfair advantage. You can't hold him. That's not fair to the defense. What was unfair? Like, I get it. If Dustin Hopkins had crossed the 50, it looked like he was trying to tackle somebody. Cool. He was running back to the tee. Nah, that's not the penalty. That's just being an asshole about the call. Like, yeah, you're technically right, but you're an asshole for calling that. Especially when something that consequential happens. It's like, come on, man. Like, this isn't the super challenge in the UFL. You can't just call that one there. But okay, now we know he can't cross the 50, but I find that one to be hard to like straight up be mad at D-Hop for as much as he's done. That I would assume that had to be an honest mistake.
I'm not like mad at him. It's just the penalty is stupid, but as much as they've covered the kickoff, like, I just kind of figured.
Any of us know that was a rule though until they explained that to us?
I did not.
I had no clue. It's not like they've been covering that part of it. Like, that's my thing is like, it's a new rule. There are parts of it that you do or do not know. And maybe there was like some question there of, okay, well, I ran past the 50 last week and nobody said anything. So like, are we good here? And then some jerk calls it and it's like, okay, well, now nobody can run past the 50. So I think that's more NFL officiating being NFL officiating and there being a legitimate reason for confusion. I bet if we hear from Dustin Hopkins on that, I don't know if we're going to hear from Dustin Hopkins on that because we didn't lose, so he has no reason to talk to the media like normal.
Right.
So, I mean,
regardless, it was very costly.
We'll hear something like that.
29-yard pass interference against the Bengals on 4th and 16. You got a 3rd and 8 from the Bengals 34. The Chiefs down 2.
All right.
You can kick the field goal now.
Yeah, they could kick it from there.
There you go. Ravens lose to Vegas in overtime, which, just absolutely feels wonderful as they're 0-2. The other aspects that I was going to say that were dumb in this game, obviously, I don't want to call them dumb because they weren't dumb. The thing that was dumb was the third down play, and Stefanski talked about it, how he wanted him to take a sack. If you guys know what I'm talking about, after the face mask, which was critical, after the holding penalties, you're backed up. You have a chance to either give them the ball with 40 seconds left and make them go the distance, or 87 seconds left and make them go the distance. By throwing an incomplete pass there, you give them an extra 40 plus seconds to drive down the field. Now, it ended up not mattering, but why even? I guess my question is, why even roll him out and try that right there? Like, why? I guess I don't know. And then, Stefanski said he did kind of chew him out a little bit about throwing the ball. You're supposed to take a sack, but you put him in that position out on the edge. I don't know. Either way, I probably would have just been like, let's just get out of here, kick it, and let our defense win this game. You're not going to convert that.
Go to.
Yeah.
Because they did that same thing with PJ Walker against San Francisco. Yeah. Where like they feel like they're like one day they're gonna get something off that look, but they're hell bent on getting something off that look because like every time they're in a situation like that, they call it. I don't know what the look is they're looking for, but they call it every time. And Deshaun needs to take the sack there. But again, it's kind of the same thing you have with PJ, where it's like just let the play die. Like it's okay.
Yep.
That kick is good. The Bengals are 0-2.
Bengals are 0-2. Ravens are 0-2. Steelers still winning?
Yeah, the Steelers won that game.
Yeah, they won. What was it, 13-6? It was an ugly, even more ugly than the Browns game.
Yeah, Bo Nix is just not good.
Yep. All right. Well, the Browns sit in second place in the AFC North after 2 weeks at 1-1. And the two most
second.
Yeah. And the two best teams or other good teams in the division, because I don't count the Steelers as one of them, are 0-2. So that's all fantastic right there. I did want to ask you guys. We were talking wide receivers real quickly. May lose David Bell for some time. The dislocated hip. Is that a season-ending injury? Do you guys know?
I think they got it. I saw someone talking about needing like a CT scan to make sure there's no, or like an MRI to make sure there's no like ligament damage in there and that sort of thing. But I would think as long as there's not damage to any of the ligaments or nerves, I would think it just reset it and give it a few weeks.
Jerry Jeudy, 5 for 73, 14.6 per catch. The only one I had an issue with, I thought he played a really good game. The one play that Watson made on the sideline was very dangerous, where it got bobbled on the sideline. He did put some velocity on it, and Jeudy caught it, but it was knocked around by a defender first, I believe. But he played a heck of a game, I thought. And two good weeks in a row, scored a touchdown last week. Elijah Moore was not bad today. He did have a couple drops, but 6 for 44. So I'm going to tout for my guy there with 6 catches, although he does need to catch those 2 other ones. And he could have had an 8-catch day ultimately. Deontay Foreman, I thought, looked fantastic. Jerome Ford looked amazing. I did want to, as stupid as some of the stuff happened, going for it on 4th down in your own end, and the kick pitch out to Ford for whatever that was, a 45-yard run. Fantastic call. Loved that. It was amazing. All in all, we'll come away from this like they can be so much better than this. This was just a really, really like they were their own worst nightmare in this game. I did think, the defense looked stagnant for the third quarter. To Quincy's point, I feel like they tried to take a couple shot plays there, but they just couldn't protect long enough. to get him his eyes down the field, and that was not on Watson at all. That the protection broke down there. So let's go around here, Jacob, and talk about what your biggest, most important takeaway here was today.
Yeah, I think we're you kind of touched on this, like they can be so much better. And I think that was the biggest thing, was like there was a lot of meat left on the bone for this offense after it took significant strides in my mind. And for me, it's Jerry Jeudy. Like the biggest thing that comes out of this is, okay, we talked about this after the trade. Like, Andrew Berry has coveted Jerry Jeudy for multiple years. He's been trying to get him into Cleveland since he got in the NFL. We know that. And we said, Judy's going to be really good in this Ken Dorsey, Kevin Stefanski hybrid offense, and that his ability to kind of create after the catch and to keep playing back to the ball with a mobile quarterback, like that's going to really work. Well, we saw all of that today. He did some nice things. Didn't do a ton after the catch compared to what I've seen him do in other situations. It was more getting those big chunk plays. But him having a 30-yard completion, I think, is very significant. Like there is a big explosive play that didn't come from Amari Cooper or David Njoku, the guys that are normally making these plays. So you're seeing more people step up. Elijah Moore, like you said, I thought he looked good. Jerry Jeudy was their best wide receiver today. Like Dante Foreman had a really – these guys are starting to figure it out. They're starting to put it all together. But one thing I will say that gives me even more hope is – the tackles are going to get healthy. And if Nick Chubb was out there, that Jerome Ford play would have been a touchdown. So lots of good things, lots of good places they're going, but they still have really, really good pieces to take this even further moving forward, especially when they get healthy.
I will say this about the run game, and I'm going to come to you, Quincy. Welcome to the show, Casey Kinnaman. What's going on, brother? The running backs together today, I thought did a really good job. Combined, good change of pace. I know, you can pick and choose kind of who the hot hand is there, but they both got theirs for the most part, right? And I know, as you mentioned earlier, Foreman probably should have had a lot more yardage. I guess Ford only did have 7 carries for 64, but still, I mean, that's highly effective, efficient.
It's over 100 between the two of them. The two of them together had over 100 yards. So
yes, exactly. 21 carries between the two of them for over 100 yards, and that's what you want. So 106. So, Quincy, what's your biggest takeaway today? I know you talked about this kind of being a jumping off point for Watson. I totally agree. Like it can be better, but this was kind of what we needed to see as a team. Moving forward to what could be a little bit softer part of the schedule here, offensively, on the offense, defensively, what are your biggest takeaways as they head into week 3?
I think this team can run the ball. Jacksonville, make no mistake about it, they got some run defenders on that roster, starting with Trevon Walker, Josh Allen-Hines, all these guys. Like they're built to stop the run, and you were able to move the ball against them. Now you had to start holding in the fourth quarter to get it done there, but I think you can really run this ball, especially before Nick Chubb gets back, and I think you can run it obviously when Nick Chubb gets back. I think the run game is something there to look at, right? Jerome Ford, I don't know did he get hurt at some point in this game? Because I don't remember seeing him the last 2 drives. Maybe they're trying to do like a finisher closer thing, like they're doing with like they used to do with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, where like Hunt would just take the final 2 drives of the game. Maybe that's a kind of a thing they were doing there, and they were onto something until the face mask and hold, right? Because they look like classic. Oh, we about to close this thing out, Chubb Hunt kind of deal, and do the thing with it, but. Unfortunately, they got in their own way with the penalties there. But, yeah, I mean, we know this Browns team is talented. We know this Browns team can win football games with a large variety of quarterback play. The question coming into this was, hey, was the variety of quarterback play we were going to get from our starter going to be in the acceptable range? This was well within the acceptable range of quarterback play. Defensively, you got some things to clean up. Look, this looks like a team still that has not played a ton. And like whether you want to put in the preseason or other things, looks like a team that wasn't healthy in training camp. Right? Like they look like a team that needs to kind of play themselves into peak form here. And even Kevin Stefanski admits it when you hear him in the pregame, postgame speech. He's like, yeah, we're not playing our best football in September. Yeah, we know. Like, This is not what peak of this roster play looks like. And I think they're trying to work into it and work back into it. Fortunately for them, if you look at the schedule ahead, they might be afforded that luxury, right, to be able to work into it. You know, you would hope that by the time you get into division play in 5 weeks, that Amari Cooper starts to look like Amari Cooper again, right? Like, I'm wondering if it's age or if he's just playing himself into shape. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's Amari Cooper, that he's just playing himself into shape right now. But it is concerning, very concerning, the last 8 quarters of football for him. But you like what you've seen from Jerry Jeudy. You like what you're seeing from the run game. And you're like, okay, well, we know we're going to get David Njoku back. We know that Nick Chubb's coming back. Hopefully he looks like Nick Chubb when he does come back. You're going to get healthier at offensive line, which you hope would help the penalties. Maybe this is just a case of too much pressure being put on the interior 3 and it's starting to bend because I thought Dewan played fine in this game, but I don't know how James Hudson played. I didn't notice him that much in this game, but I just saw the prelim PFF grade and it can't be that bad, right? I would have noticed it if it was that bad. So, I don't know where James was in this game, but overall, you feel like you're going to get a lot of pieces back to this team. You're going to look a lot cleaner. And again, you want to take a step versus New York and continue to take steps after that. And then by the time you get to Philly and you get to your division games, now the time for taking steps are over. And now you need to actually make real progress against some of the best teams in the NFL. So, that's going to be the mark for the Browns right now. Good step in the right direction. You got the win. You didn't lose a very winnable game. This is not going to be one of those games where if we just won the Jacksonville game, right? Ultimately you got it. But yeah, I think the important thing for them to know is that they can run this football and don't go away from it. I think they kind of went away from it to start the second half because they wanted to just explode the game wide open and kind of just take over and kind of put this game out of reach. But no, just let that run game do its thing. I think you can do it. I've had my reservations about Jerome Ford getting feature amount of touches because of how he runs, but how he was running in this game, I'm like, now you can run that guy 15 times. If he's going to be as patient and as smart as he was in this game, good vision from Jerome Ford. I thought a lot of this game. So yeah, and then he has that classic Jerome Ford burst too, where he can get a big play off. So I really enjoy what the Browns are doing in the run game. I think that is making some progress. Shout out to Andy Dickerson, who's a big part of that. The question is hey, what's going on with the interior line? And can we get this level of play and better from the quarterback going forward? And if we get that, okay. If we get that, we beat the Eagles and then we beat the Ravens or the Bengals, whoever comes first. All of a sudden, now we're back on, right? Now we feel pretty damn good about everything that we're feeling, and that's probably when the suspension's going to come in. But yeah, probably right. Think about that right now, okay? So all in all, good step in the right direction. And this is why I think the Browns also, last thing I'm going to say here, I know I've been talking a while. Last thing I'm going to say here is the Browns have the better coach, and this is what having the better coach gets you. Right, 2 big calls in that game. Browns going for it on 4th down with the QB sneaking and do the toss out. That was a huge play for him. And then the decision to punt, because some coaches would have been like, well, his long's 58. We could kick that field goal. And I know there's a lot of people probably yelling at you guys on Twitter the Browns should have kicked the field goal there, right? Why are we playing passive? You make the decision to trust your guys there on both times. It pays off massively. You put the game away because of, in part, those 2 plays there. And then you look at the Jaguars on the side. They ran out of timeouts in the first half, all on procedural, timeouts because they couldn't get the play call in there. Because they got 2 guys calling plays in Jacksonville and all of that mess. That looked like to me a team that is a mess, and their coach is definitely a part of it. For Browns fans who want to fire their head coach every week, that is what it looks like when your coaching staff sucks. Jacksonville, they don't look like they have it together. Cleveland, okay, we had some messes, some penalties, some holding, but you know what? We were able to be competent at the end of the day, and win a very Tomlin-like game at the end of it because they have a good coach. So shout out to the Browns, shout out to Kevin Stefanski. That's what better coaching gets you. And I think there's a lot that we're going to be able to discuss, but oh goodness, the tone's going to be so much better this week.
Yeah, much better week incoming for Browns fans. So true. Case Dog, what's going on, man? How you feeling after this one? What are your takeaways? Browns got in their own way a little bit, but they figured it out in the end. Watson looked better. Wide receiver Jerry Jeudy kind of had a big game. Run game looked good, as we were kind of talking about. Kind of wish they would have leaned into it a little more, even except for the penalties. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, there's plenty of stuff to clean up, but it's always better to do that following a win. It's always better vibes, and you can take better teaching moments and not feel like it's in desperation. But I think we saw at the beginning of this game what they want this offense to be, what their vision for it was with the pre-snap motion, with the run efficiency, getting in 50-50 situations. The spacing in the passing game was beautiful to start off. And Jacksonville really didn't have an answer for it. Deshaun was seeing the field well early on and able to take easy answers, and that's what helped move the ball. If you look at the first drive that they had the ball for 9 minutes and 16 seconds. In the first half last week, they only had the ball for 10 minutes and 4 seconds in the entire first half. So just the ability to show that they could build, that they could just keep those chains moving and, matriculate down the field. Obviously, the things that kind of went wrong, I think it cascades from the offensive line as far as what they got them off track in the third quarter. They weren't able to build because you kind of almost had that feeling that when they got that ball first in the third quarter, they could really establish it and kind of really put Jacksonville away, start to head towards that direction. And when the offense started stalling and, the defense finally started to give a little bit. But overall, man, it's a road victory. It's a good AFC team, man. Like Jacksonville's going to win some games and they might vie for a wild card. So it's not a real possibility that you see them down the line. But to get that win there, kind of give you that tiebreaker in the back of your mind. Now you get to come home and play the New York Giants. And there's no layups in the NFL. That's the other thing, man. The NFL is such a week-to-week proposition. Like, people seem to forget that. Like, things could look terrible one week. And then the next week, like Cincinnati got stomped by New England at home and then actually took it to Kansas City on the road. It's so week to week. We got to stop getting wrapped up in just one game, and it's about what you can do over time and start stacking. And that's what Stefanski's teams have been good about doing, putting the blinders on. They didn't let the loss to Dallas last week beat them this week in Jacksonville. And I think that is a huge key because we've seen teams in the past do that. And Stefanski's teams are able to just put those blinders on, take care of this week's mission, and then they're going to watch the film tomorrow. And then for them, Tuesday, it'll be on to the New York Giants. In my opinion, that's a very winnable game at home. And they need good vibes at home because that win today was great. But the people that watched that game last week, they need that washed out of their mouth. They're going to show up to that stadium again next Sunday, and they can't have a similar performance, man. You got to keep this on the rails and beat the teams you're supposed to beat, which is what they did today, in my opinion.
Where's your I told you so?
I'm not that petty, Jacob. I'll let you guys do it for me.
Well, it's not like you called the safety in the pregame show. Is that you want me to say that? Not you.
I called it 16-13 with the safety, and the safety ended up putting it to 18. So yeah, it's pretty sharp. And Foreman didn't score a touchdown. I did call that, and I thought he was going too early.
He looked like he had it on that play, that fourth.
Yeah,
fourth down. I thought he was gone.
Yeah, I want to say this about the running game, though. I think that they found the formula. I think Ford is the guy that you early down guy, and then Foreman's the early down guy and let Ford be the change of pace. I think that's what we saw today. Like Foreman will just bash you. He's coming straight forward, battering ram, falling forward, and then you can kind of get those sneaky plays to Ford. And Ford did have a 34-yard run on one play. But even if you take that play away, he still averaged 5 yards carry.
Yeah.
Man, imagine what Ford is like the second back is going to look like when it's Nick Chubb taking those first.
Boom.
Yeah. That's the vision right there, right? And you have your tackles back, and you have your full complement of offense. If they can get to that point, it feels like there's always, pulling one thing away when you add one. But if you could stack all those things together, then you're really.
Could you Could you imagine getting to the fourth quarter with a lead and you've been running Nick Chubb and Jerome Ford, and then you're like, you know what? How about a really fresh Dante Foreman?
Yeah.
The Foreman drive, just like just give him like 8 carries and 1 drive.
That'd be his only touches all game. Just right.
Like, it's coming, guys. They're gonna throw the Foreman drive in.
Yeah. He can do it too, man. He runs hard. That the face mask was brutal today because that was it. That was the ball game, and I don't know if he was if his hand got stuck in there or what. He knew it right away.
Yeah, he did. He came up.
Nah, he knew he yammed him. He was yamming him. He didn't care where he was yamming him at, but it was a really clean, clean stiff arm. And I would imagine when you're a running back, you get that clean stiff arm, man. You just want to get it perfect, and he went down, and that's always what happens. You get down, and boom, all of a sudden your fingers caught in your face mask.
That sequence was knucking futs. I'm talking. You go from first and goal to 3rd and 36 from midfield, like, dude. It was just skip snowballing,
and then they ended out of field goal range.
Yeah.
Thank God they won that game.
Yeah, would you relive that?
And stop the clock. That was rough. But listen, you guys think the biggest point that you guys have all made about the offense here is, this was a super weird offseason, a super weird training camp where they spent like 3 days with their full complement of guys together because of Judy's injuries and whatnot. And it was obvious in week 1. Well, it wasn't as obvious this week, and they looked like they took a step forward. Watson managed the game, made some special plays. It's a jumping off point for him. The defense continues to impress for me. I thought they were good for the most part all day. Greg Newsome got bodied a little bit on that deep ball, but he was right there running with them. But, Brian Thomas ain't no joke either.
I said a little bit there.
Yeah.
Brian Thomas.
Yeah.
Threw Greg Newsome off of him.
Yeah. He kind of hip checked him right off of him.
Greg went from having great coverage to being on the numbers.
Not even close. Yeah, that was rough. But for the most part, considering that I didn't even know that Denzel wasn't out there, he did not get hurt, to answer your question in the chat. I guess he came in with a shoulder injury and was on a snap count, is what we're hearing. So they limited him in the second half more because I saw him almost get what could have been his 3rd interception of the season in the first half. That's 3 times now he's had both hands on the ball early in the season and not brought one down yet. So Browns defense, have they created a turnover yet, gentlemen? No.
Isn't a safety a turnover technically?
Sure, I guess. Yeah, maybe.
But I don't think so because they've had
2 strip sacks, no recovery,
and like 5 dropped picks.
And every time you get one of those near turnovers, like MJ almost got it today, and then like 2 plays later, Jacksonville moves all the way down the field. That kind of swing where you would have cut it off at the neck right there. And
that drive was the same one the kickoff was, right? That first drive that they scored and went all the way down the field was the one where we missed the kickoff. Well, we didn't get the kickoff because of the penalty that they called there on the kickoff there. So yeah, it's
I think that one was on after when they were up 10-0, or 10-3, whatever it was. They were up 10
possession of the game or something like that, right? It was
really
early where I was like, oh, it might be an ass whooping.
Yes, because I thought, oh my God, if they got this fumble, they're going to go up 17-0, right? And that's that bad penalty and bad. Stupid penalty. We'll call it.
I mean, I know that play doesn't count, but Winston Reed smoked him.
He smoked him.
Yeah. We got
smoked. God.
Yeah. So good for Winston Reed getting down there and lighting somebody up, huh? How about that? He just got the call up, so good for him. All right, let's do it one more time around the horn as we go into this week. I will say, I'll start here and just say, I liked the idea of what they went to do in the third quarter, as far as, Quincy mentioned it earlier, and with the kind of weird, they do that where the running back crosses across Watson's face to pick up the blocker, and they pull somebody, and he kind of spins around to set up.
Mhm.
They did twice there, that and another play to set up shot plays to kind of take a,
Yeah.
they didn't hit any really huge plays, except for maybe, if you want to count the Judy, I don't know, it was like a 20 or 30-yard catch down the field that they had to have late in the game.
Yeah, I'll count it. I'll count that.
Yeah, we'll count that one as big. That was monstrous. But, we haven't seen them hit any deep balls or anything, right, to make things easier on your offense, really. So I liked the idea that they were going for that in the third quarter. They just couldn't protect it long enough to even let him get a look down the field, because there's probably something there. So I like that concept, and I want to see them continue to try to stretch the field that way. And as we go into week 3 here, I think that was psyching me out. I think your camera was moving there.
Yeah.
Quincy. That threw me off. I was like, what is going on? Yeah, but I think stretching the ball vertically down the field is a big part of the next step in this, right? So you've got Watson playing a little better. You've got him with some confidence. You've got the run game coming into its own. Now let's start to stretch the ball down the field vertically and get Coop involved early, right? So that would be my final comments. And we'll kind of go around the horn here. Jacob, go ahead. Final thoughts on Browns 18-13, 1-1 after 2 weeks. They had to be 1-1 after 2 weeks. And here we are as they get the road win in Jacksonville, Duval County.
If in northern Florida, as we learned earlier today. Casey, he already said that line, but I needed to say it again because you weren't here for it the first time. Moving forward, I feel really good because you won a game where you didn't have your best stuff off on offense, and you were able to go out there and do just enough offensively, and your defense was able to be the defense that, Casey, you mentioned this when on our show and stuff all the time about, the defense needing to carry us early in this year. Well, they were able to do that mixed with just enough from the offense. And to me, it's like, you're going to get better at left tackle. I don't know when, and I don't know who it is, but either Jack Conklin or Jed Wills is going to come back at, I believe, soon, and they'll be better than James Hudson. I think you are going to get better up front. You're going to get Nick Chubb at some point. And if you can clean up drops and penalties, I feel pretty good. If you can just kind of clean up some of those areas and get healthy.
Jacob, how much do you think that the humidity and the how quick that Florida humidity kind of exhausts you in a way that it really doesn't when it's 80 anywhere else, had into the 5 holds that the Browns had, especially the ones that happened late, where it's maybe they're just at that point gassed
on people
all drive, and it's just just grab something. And it's early in the season, so you're not as conditioned. I wonder how much that has to do with it, and it's not some big structural analysis of how the Browns run, that it's a problem there.
Yeah.
Certainly could be that. Agreed. I totally forgot, because of the way the game looked on TV. You forget how warm it was there, because it looked sloppy and rainy, and the field was a mess. So, although they talked about the field being a mess pregame, not a lot of slips and falls from what we saw, at least in my opinion.
Not as many as I expect. I did expect more than we got today.
Yes.
I know Dearness fell a couple of times. I think Elijah Moore fell once.
Yeah.
I think Amari Cooper fell. I'm not 100% sure if Amari Cooper fell, but it was kind of one of those things where I think he tried to make a cut and then he just didn't cut it clean. There was a lot of not visible slips where you would see somebody slip and fall and wipe out. But I did think there was a lot of oh man, they're cutting way slower than they usually would, or they're not as aggressive about how they would go about some of these angles.
Definitely a slower track for sure.
Yeah.
And then Quincy, I want your thoughts here as we go into week 3. I was going to say this though. I have seen this narrative, and I saw it out there on Browns Twitter right after the game. Is Amari Cooper mad at the Browns? And is that, dude, no. Amari Cooper is a professional. He's just he's struggling a little bit right now. To Quincy's point, he might be playing himself into shape a little bit, but no, he is not dogging it. Did you watch his? Go back and watch his press conference this week, and that will show you exactly who he is and how he feels about this team. He was the perfect, player, said all the right things. He is not dogging it because he's mad at the Browns. I'm just wanted to clarify that. Go ahead, Quincy.
Amari Cooper like money too much to not play his best. I don't think people understand who Amari Cooper is. This is a man who wants to get paid at the end of the day, and that's his ethos throughout his career. I want to get paid. I don't care how. Yeah, I think he wants to get paid, and he knows he needs to play better than this. And I think this is partly like he had a bad track today. The field wasn't clean. But, I mean, Jerry Jeudy didn't really have a problem with it. And also, he might be playing himself into shape, the offense, all these things are working out kinks. He's probably going to have the bulk of the choice routes that are in the offense. So maybe there's just some stuff him and Watson need to work out over time. So I'll give Amari Cooper more than 2 weeks before I write him off for the whole season, especially given how good he's been the last 2 years. So Coop, not really too worried about him. The main thing here is run game matters. I think the run game is going to matter a lot this year. Running the football seems to be a big thing for a lot of teams this year with how high, with all the too high safety stuff. So, run the football, take care of business. And, hopefully this isn't a memorable game for Deshaun Watson. And what I mean by this is we're not like, hey, man, remember that first half of Jacksonville for 8 weeks? I hope he plays so well going forward that we forget that this game even happened, because he should have way better games than this going forward. But as we're talking about where he is right now, good step in the right direction. Now let's see Watson start to build towards actually being the guy that we expected him to be, because now we're not expecting him to be an absolute mess on the field like he was week 1. So good step in the right direction, all that. But also we got to make sure that the expectations for Watson shouldn't be, hey, man, just look like a game manager out there. The expectation should be look like one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, especially in crunch time. And I think he made some really good steps towards that today.
Yeah, he did. Made some big plays down the stretch when they had to have them, for sure. Casey Kinnaman, final thoughts, sir?
As he was talking, I started thinking this was kind of reminiscent of what he looked like in Tennessee last year after he bounced back from that Pittsburgh game. High completion percentage, hitting the open people, pretty similar in that regard. Also, you guys probably talked about it, but I got to say it, man. The sneak god, Jameis Winston.
We did not. We forgot about that.
Oh, dude. And that's something else we never got to find out last week, because we never found ourselves in those situations. But Stefanski's probably been itching for that, right? Putting 5 out there and just letting him get that one, and then having wrinkles off of it, like that pitch out to Jerome, So it's
yeah,
man, refreshing.
Is he the guru on that? Has he figured out? Everybody's talking about the tush push, but I think he's figured out this whole QB sneak thing, because sometimes you can stand there and then just follow whatever happens. It's just it's Jacoby percentage every time we have a guy just go in and do the sneaks. Harrison Bryant, Jacoby, now Jameis, and it's hey man, I feel like Kevin's figured it out.
Yeah, he on the second one, he really hesitated. He stood there for a minute. I was almost like, what's he doing? And then he just kind of jumped over the pile.
Tricks out of that one, dog. We got the reverse fake, because we've seen that out of Kevin before, right? Yeah. We got the reverse fake, the run out of it, the quarterback play action that he keeps going to for no reason, and now the stunt and go, from Jameis there. And I find that mastery on the QB sneak a hilarious Browns thing that we've added to the basket there.
I love it. Case, go ahead, finish up. Are you done?
No, I mean, if you think about it, man, like you think about the mission is next week going in. You got New York coming in, kind of similar as far as the edge rush. You're going to have Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau, two hyper athletic guys. Hopefully, you get healthier at left tackle. I seem to think Jack will be back before Jed, but somebody. Let's keep building on this, and then maybe you can use Hudson as the oversized because we saw him go jumbo several times with Zinter. We saw Nick Harris get a lot of work. They were definitely supplementing the fact they didn't have David Njoku out there to help block. You know what I mean? So you might have to do that for another week or two before Njoku comes back. But like you said, the cavalry's on its way. It's going to come in different tiers. You're going to get some tackle help. You're going to get Njoku. You're going to get Nick Chubb. Hopefully, the rest of the unit can stay as healthy as possible until that happens, so you can actually see what you're cooking with. But Jacob said it, man. You won without your best stuff, and on the road in the NFL, that is damn hard to do. So, mission accomplished. Now you got to go home and take care of business.
So, Casey, you're saying that the Browns are opening the season like a AAA video game releases, where it's just like, all right, man, day one. Wait till the patches start getting in, By December, this thing gonna be looking right.
Wait till they patch that roughing the kicker glitch they have.
Oh man, it was unplayable week 1, but they done cyberpunk that thing, and now you gotta get the game of the year edition.
Let's see. PFF gives the Browns a 200 red zone efficiency rating. All right, and I don't know what that means. All right, so the question here, Serge said, and I will leave you guys with this, is one of the tackles should be back, right? Or else they would have been on the IR because we're coming up on week 4. I guess I don't think they know when they're going to be back. That's what
They thought they were going to be back by now.
Right.
Everything they showed us, they thought they were going to start the season with both of those guys.
That's what I think too. I agree. So I don't think they know when they're going to be back. I think they expect them back anytime. I don't know. So
both were limited, so maybe we get a full practice from both of them.
Yes, that'd be
back-to-back days.
Thursday at practice, they play rock, paper, scissors. That's 2 out of 3. Winner gets to dress up on game day.
There it is. I love that plan. Put it into action. You heard it here first. All right, guys. Thank you so much for sticking around for an hour. 1,600 of you stopping by. Hit like and subscribe on your way in and out of here. So it helps us out a ton, and it doesn't cost you a damn thing. Browns win 18-13, 1-1. We'll take road victory in the AFC and keep it locked at the OBR all week long as we have Stump pumping out all content and our weekly shows all week long. Go Browns. What's that say? Make sure everybody likes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Do that. And go enjoy a victory Sunday night and a victory Monday for everybody at the OBR. For Jacob, Quincy, Casey, I am Brad Ward. We are out.